Hey guys, it's Cheryl from Woodshop Diaries, and in this video we're going to build a simple console table, but we're going to build it with some pretty unique drawer fronts. This video was sponsored by Creality. So my wood room is quite the mess, but I believe I can get most of this project from the scrap pile. So hopefully this will help make a dent. This project doesn't really require a lot of material, and most of the pieces are fairly small. So I dug around and found pretty much everything I needed in the scrap pile except for one 2x4 that I ripped down into 2x2s for the legs. On these legs, after I trimmed them to length, I tapered the ends, and if you saw my last video, you'll know that I tapered the legs on that project too, so I think I'm just on a roll here. Then I cut down my scraps to build the console table frame. I've got 4 legs, and then I have 2 side panels. Then I've got 1x3s that will be like the front frame. Then I'm using some 3/4 inch plywood strips for the back. These won't be seen, so it doesn't matter that they're plywood. I'm not going to edge band them. They're also red oak plywood, and everything else here is like pine and birch. So this is kind of a Frankenstein project, but these won't be seen, so it doesn't really matter. I'm just using the scraps that I had. And then I have 2 more plywood pieces that will be the drawer dividers. The drawers are going to be overlay, so the drawer fronts will cover these, but when you open the drawer, the front edges of these 2 pieces for the dividers will be exposed. So I'm going to edge band the front of these. After sanding everything, I drilled pocket holes to assemble. First, I attached the 2 sides between the 4 legs. Then I attached the front and back strips between them. Next, I added the drawer dividers. I cut these so that they would fit between the top and bottom strips, and so that they would be about 1 inch inset from the front edge. I just made sure that they were evenly spaced and then screwed them in from the top and the bottom. Then I cut 3 drawer fronts to fit across the front opening. Okay, so just pretend like this is how I assembled it the first time. I took it apart and trimmed it down and reassembled it the exact same way, just I made this a little shorter. It just seemed weird proportionately with the taller drawers. So I made the drawers shorter, and now I'm trying to decide if I want to add a shelf. Spoiler alert, I decided to add the shelf. So I dug out and cut a few more scrap pieces to fit between the legs and installed these with pocket holes and screws. In hindsight, I could have, and maybe should have, installed these earlier in the build, like when I was installing all of the other framing, but this is simple enough to add at pretty much any point in the project. I'll come back and add the actual plywood shelf into this frame later when I add the plywood top, but for now, let's talk about these drawer fronts. So this console is totally fine with plain drawer fronts, as you can see, but I really wanted to give this a little bit more character and add some decorative detail onto the front. For this, I'm going to use my new laser cutter and engraver. So this is the Creality Falcon 2 Pro, and it comes in a 22, 40, or a 60 watt version. And I've made a few projects with this already, but I do know that it can cut through 1/4 inch thick material, no problem, and that's what we'll be using for this project. This system is fully enclosed, so I'm a bit limited in the size that I can cut or engrave simply because it has to fit inside. But the cutting area is about 15 3/4 inches square, and the inside is about 21 by 23 inches, and that's more than enough for this and most other projects. So this laser works with a couple different softwares, but I'm going to be using Lightburn. Essentially, I'm just going to draw a couple of rectangles here and make them the same size as my drawer fronts. I imported some simple designs that I had made and just sized these to fit. In this case, I want to cut all of these pieces out, so I set everything up for cutting and I pop in my material. So this was my bad. I set my settings, my speed a little too fast, so it didn't cut all the way through. You can see it cut like most of the way through on everything. So next time I just need to remember to set my settings a little slower, but we can pop these out. I wanted to try 3 different drawer designs, so I cut these 2, but for the third one, I wanted to engrave. One of the really handy features of this enclosed system is that it has an integrated camera. So once my material is in, I can take a photo of it and locate my design on it where I want. So I've got my 3 drawer front options. This one is super modern, and then this one is a little bit more traditional, and then this one's modern, but I don't feel like it's quite as busy as this one. So I think I'm gonna go with this one, which means I need to cut 2 more. So this is better. The pieces are actually cut this time. So I'm gonna glue these onto my drawer fronts shortly, but for now, I wanted to show you one more thing. You guys know there's no way I could get something like this and not end up making pet projects with it. So I've engraved their name here, and then I cut this out and glued it onto a backer that I had stained like a golden oak color, so it would match Bub's color. And then for Lucy, since she's a black dog, I stained the back of hers black. These just turned out so cute. I have a feeling this is not gonna be the only pet project that I make using this laser, but for now, we'll head back to the build. Now that I have my drawer fronts figured out, I moved on to building 3 small drawer boxes. So I've got my 3 drawer fronts, and then I've got my drawer sides, and then I've got my drawer box, like front and back pieces. I'm gonna edge band all of these, but I thought while I'm edge banding, I'm gonna go ahead and cut the top so that I can edge band that at the same time. And I have like a scrap, it's not really a scrap, it's a leftover piece from a previous project that's a fairly good size, but I'm gonna cut the top out of it, and then the other part I'll cut the bottom shelf. From this piece of 3/4 inch plywood, I cut down a piece for the top and a piece that would fit into my shelf frame in the bottom. Then I edge banded. After all the edge banding was over, I drilled pocket holes to assemble the drawer boxes. Now these boxes were pretty shallow, so instead of cutting dados to install the 1/4 inch plywood bottom, after the box was together, I just glued and stapled them on. This helps to maximize what little space was available inside. I built 3 identical boxes, then remembered that I had not installed the slides yet. So I installed 3 pair of 14-inch door slides into the console table so that they were about 1 inch inset from the front edge. I almost went ahead and installed the drawer boxes, but then I realized that it would be easier if I attached the top first. So I placed my plywood top onto the console and secured with wood screws through the top supports around the front and the back. Then I installed the door boxes onto the slides. If you want to learn more about building and installing drawers and drawer slides, I'll link my drawer building video series in the description below with tons of helpful information. So all that's left is adding in the bottom panel, and then we'll stain everything and finish up the drawer fronts. I drilled pocket holes around the edges of the bottom shelf to install between the frame. I installed this so that it was about 1/4 inch down from the top of the frame, and this just gave it a little lip so that if you put something on the shelf, it's less likely to slide or roll or fall off. And at that point, it was time for stain. So I've tried out 6 different stain colors to figure out what I want to do with the hexagon shapes on the door front. So I think I want to stain them like different colors And I was thinking I would go with several different colors, but the more I look at this, the more I think I'm just gonna narrow it down. I think I'm gonna go with Early American, Weathered Oak, and True Black. I think I'm gonna stain the whole piece in Early American, and then I'll have the Weathered Oak and the True Black to kind of contrast just on the door fronts. I just randomly stained the hexagon drawer front pieces from my 3 color options. I didn't have a pattern or anything, just completely random. Then I arranged them on my drawer fronts and glued them in place one by one. While that dried, I stained the console. Now you guys know that I hate this part, so I turned off the camera and I turned on the radio to get it over with. Once everything was dry, I carefully installed the drawer fronts using screws from inside each box. So I've got like these finger pulls. Because I added this 1/4 inch plywood onto the front, it doesn't really give me a lot of overhang to grab onto. I really didn't want to put like a knob or a pull on this, like I wanted this to just be left as is. So I'm gonna put these on. And the good thing about these is you screw them in from the back. So if I decide later that they're not working, I can just take these off and then put like a knob. But I'm gonna try these first. So just FYI, if you're trying this, keep in mind that adding this on the front, there's not a lot of room here to grab a hold of, but it could be fine. I don't know. I'm gonna live with it for a while and we'll see. I was kind of in a hurry to wrap this up to see how it looked, so I came back later and applied a couple coats of Minwax polyacrylic to seal this. But with that, this simple console was complete. As you can see, the build itself was super basic and simple, but these drawer fronts really gave it a unique style. I hope you enjoyed seeing this project come together, and I hope it gave you some fun ideas to try out on your own drawer fronts or doors on a future project. I'll be back soon with plenty more DIYs to share, so be sure to subscribe to the channel if you aren't already. Thanks so much for watching, friends, and until next time, happy building!